Are you the friend nobody likes? That sounds ridiculous, right? How can you be friends with someone if they don't like you? Well, recently I was watching Ginny and Georgia and a friend mentioned they hate the character Max. Their take was, she's just too much. And I couldn't help but laugh because honestly, I've heard people say the exact same thing about me. And maybe you have too. Which got me thinking, why is it friend groups seem to need a problem friend? It's something we all know but rarely admit about friendship. Love and cruelty often exist in the same space, making the too much friend both essential and expendable. Max's experience isn't just about her, it's about anyone who's been told their feelings take up too much space. Whenever I get on this topic, I think about that line from The Big Lebowski. You're not wrong, you're just an asshole. Objectively, many things Max did in seasons 1 and 2 were cruel, and she admits she enjoyed the power rush. Like destroying Abby's birthday banner or completely icing Ginny out, but did she not have a right to be upset? Well, throughout the latter half of season 2 and the majority of season 3, she was actively lied to, excluded, and guilt-tripped despite having reasonable concerns, so yes, both things can be true. We're not responsible for the way people treat us, but we are in control of how we express our emotions. There are a lot of people who make hurtful observations while hiding behind, I'm just being honest, but like, okay, Kevin, you don't need to be a dick about it. Most see this as a lack of respect for others, and as such associate no filter with self-centeredness. Yet I don't think the real Max is the person her parents and friends perceive her to be. To understand her, we have to start with Marcus and her parents. Twins, even fraternal ones, often try to differentiate themselves. Although this raises the old chicken or egg question. Does Max externalize and overfunction because Marcus always internalizes and implodes, or the other way around? Is it a matter of nature? Even if Max and Marcus were born an extrovert and an introvert, their twinhood amplifies the intensity. They desire to be different from each other, but unfortunately are far too similar, in part because they're both horribly depressed. A lot of people will disagree with me on this. After all, depression is prescriptively doom and gloom. In Max's case, people can project into the world what they're deeply lacking in their environment. As a twin, she balances her brother, who manages to be the center of sympathy and attention even when he's quiet. This isn't Marcus's fault. Some mask pain by staying bright and silly, like Max. And others isolate, like Marcus, who can't stand socializing but alone suffer even more. They're both a lot. Marcus is brooding, deep, he plays into a sad boy who secretly wants to be fixed, a fantasy fiction has made billions off of for decades. He's the twin who feeds the desire of being chosen, while Max makes others think, wow, I'm not as dramatic as her, so my problems must be valid. Max voices this when she tells her dad she's tired of feeling she's too much for everyone. He's encouraging, but tells Max that what makes her special is she's fun and makes people laugh. But as the deaths of so many vibrant, happy people show, people shouldn't need permission to be sad. The disparity in how Max and Marcus are treated by their parents is influenced by what sort of roles they believe their son and daughter have. Max gets upset, Ellen buys her a sweater. Marcus gets upset, he gets an art studio. It's one-sided. Their mom asks Max to include Marcus, but Marcus won't listen because he has real problems, and Max makes things about her. Their parents notice him, but only see her when she screams. When Max tries to calmly talk about how she's disappointed in her role, they tell her to get over it. Even Georgia was surprised by how little Ellen pushed or helped Marcus with his problem. They've created what's essentially a glass child situation. Max has to be the good twin because her parents are struggling so hard with Marcus. It falls on her to act like she has no serious problems because she's the child they shouldn't need to worry about. Their message is clearly Marcus's struggles are legitimate and deserve resources. By the third season, Marcus is constantly drinking, so Max reveals it to their parents. The siblings hurl insults about who's the real center of attention. Marcus tells her they're all just living in the Max show, no wonder she loses all of her friends. And Max can be obsessive and beat topics to death. Even when comforted, she will lash out if she believes they aren't doing it correctly. But when you strip away the dramatic delivery and the poor timing, What is Max actually asking for? Honesty from her friends, basic communication about their lives, someone not to brush off when she's struggling. People miss that Max is genuinely interested in the lives of the people around her, generous with her love and emotions, even when she receives only crumbs in return. The real Max isn't this self-centered monster her friends make her out to be. She's someone who processes her thoughts and emotions by sharing, hoping her friends will help her figure things out. And the reason she's seen as dramatic is because she's had to be loud. Otherwise, people don't pay attention, although this is weaponized against her. The worst advice Max's mother gave her was try just letting it go about Meng excluding her. Her mother says you need to meet people where they are. Fair advice on its own, but also so unhealthy. That's how resentment is born, how depression masks itself with I have no reason to be sad until the lie wears thin and there's no running from how you truly feel. This is where I come back to, you're not wrong, you're just an asshole. Max isn't wrong about the things she identifies, she's just inconvenient with the truth. And that becomes antisocial when it forces people to confront things they'd rather ignore. The pattern becomes even clearer when you look at how Max's friends handle their messiness. I am sick to death of this whole center of the universe, holier than thou, nothing is ever enough, oh how I've suffered, nobody understands me, someone fix me a drink and hand me a Nebutol worn out old Scarlett O'Hara thing. Maybe it's Georgia's obsession with Gone with the Wind, or maybe it matches how I feel on this subject, but I'm immediately drawn to this quote from the Yaya sisterhood. It's exhausting when someone makes their pain everyone else's problem, when their suffering isn't just theirs to carry but becomes the burden of everyone around them. This is why in Ginny and Georgia, tensions don't stop at the messy lives Max and her friends are living. It's how they choose to express it and how quickly they judge someone else's expression. Each member of Meng is messy, but the imbalance in how they believe pain should look makes it easy to see why Max becomes the scapegoat. Ginny and Abby have similar beliefs about expressing their problems. Despite different upbringings, both adhere to keep it secret, keep it safe, learn from their parents. Now, unlike most viewers, I have a lot of sympathy for Ginny. We only glimpse her life before the show. It's never easy being the child of someone chasing stability in the form of a romantic partner, let alone one who cannot possibly understand how the world perceives you because at a surface level, people will never see Georgia and Ginny through the same lens. The problem is, for most of the series, Ginny rejects any similarities with Georgia. Yet I feel she became more like her the moment Hunter's song went viral. Desperate to hold on to the validation, but horribly racist comments got to her head. Which is understandable, so she used popularity to prove her worth, adapting this into devaluation of others, self-centeredness, gaslighting, to protect herself from the mountains of shit she's faced being a biracial child to an emotionally immature and unstable mother. As for Abby, she has too many emotions without knowing how to express them. This must be frustratingly ironic, being a child of two therapists who forced her to talk about her feelings since she was young, but would scream at each other behind closed doors. This is why she confronted Nora about being a bad friend. Nora's equally repressed, while Max, for better or worse, externalizes all of her feelings. This is why Ginny and Abby resent Max for being so loudly herself. It's also why their pain turns into a way to torture themselves. Ginny with her burning, Abby with her binge purging. Because when you never allow anything out into the open, actions that harm only yourself are a form of control in a situation where you otherwise feel powerless. Abby sums this up when she tells Nora not to tell Max about her kissing a girl. "This is mine," she says. Instead of a bonding moment with the only other queer person in the main group, she frames Max as the enemy. That secrecy, she doesn't need to know everything, reflects the same "oh how I've suffered, nobody understands me" by Ginny when Max did not immediately forgive her for lying. Here, withholding protects the self while dismissing openness as too much. Meanwhile, Bracia, someone Max barely knows, is better to her than Meng ever was. Bracia listens without judgment, shares genuine moments, and doesn't demand Max fix her problems or absorb her emotional labor. The stark contrast of Max's supposed best friends exhausts her with their neediness while treating her needs as burdens. Yet a stranger like Bracia or even Georgia can offer the basic respect Max craves. Neither Ginny nor Abby fully explain themselves to Max. Ginny, like her mom, stayed up on her moral high ground where she convinced herself she was never obligated to tell Max everything. But if you call someone your best friend, why wouldn't you want to? Simply, Ginny didn't want to compromise her comfort. Abby, who resents being forced to discuss her emotions to death, made passive apologies without trying to broach the issue at the center of Max's anger. After all, how did the three of them make up? In Ginny and Max's makeup fight, Ginny admits she loves Max. They trade barbs and it ends with laughter, but if you really listen, it's projection. Ginny scolds Max for judging without knowing the full story, but never dared to give the full story. She flips the script so Max apologizes and her "I love you" feels more about centering her own suffering than repairing the friendship. This contradiction defines Ginny and Abby. They condemn others' lives while excusing their own, insisting their pain makes them the exception. Max, who is often cruel herself, is hardly blameless, but let's be honest. Ginny and Abby hide behind secrecy and self-righteousness, then resent Max for being unwilling to perform that same dishonesty. This is mentioned about Georgia, but it applies to all of them, and really ties in that quote from the Yaya sisterhood that I mentioned. The world is happening to her, and only her. Their unwillingness to openly communicate, far bigger than immaturity, is a survival strategy that requires Max to be the lightning rod. Otherwise, the group would have to take responsibility for their actions. As is the toxicity of performative reconciliation, affection and cruelty can coexist. They hug, laugh, say "I love you," but nothing changes. Ginny still withholds, Abby avoids confrontation. It's "I love you, mean it, hate you, kidding," where surface affection means deeper resentment. They're friends again, but Max will never be validated, never be trusted with the full truth, never be seen as worthy of the same emotional investment. This is the exhausting reality of intimacy built on a scapegoat. They require someone to absorb all of that center of the universe, holier than thou, nothing is ever enough energy, so everyone else feels reasonable by comparison. There's this moment in Mean Girls where Regina says to Katie, "You're actually really pretty." And when Katie thanks her, Regina replies, "So you agree? You think you're really pretty." When Katie says she didn't say that, Regina has already set the trap. This is how Meng's "love you, mean it, hate you, kidding" operates. Compliment, then twist it into something the other person has to defend, but oh, don't be dramatic. The truth is, toxic people want high-value people around them, but their unhealthy mindset prevents deeper connection, ultimately perceiving them as threats. And I will not blame this on Ginny, as I've seen so many people do. They're cliquey from the start. Calling Sam second tier, saying only losers wear light green, making fun of Ginny's aunt's tattoo for being trashy. I mean, they're teenagers, but the way man pretended not to want Ginny to sit with them saying, "It's a joke we do," it's not. It's a cat and mouse game. Even when something good happens to their friends, these types of people think it's taking something away from them. With all of these mental barriers in place, it forms a social prison where hate keeps them unable to break the cycle of tit for tat. And some, like Nora, become model prisoners choosing to stay because it's safer than challenging the system. When it becomes the Ginny and Abby show, they pull Nora into it because she'll follow whatever the group deems okay and leaves Max behind. Nora even voices many times if they should apologize to Max, but drops it when the others say they have nothing to apologize for. Yet Nora was the one super rude and weird about George's arrest, but Ginny forgave her so quickly. It's because Nora will go along with subtle cruelties, not malicious, but always falling on the side of the love-hate dynamic that is most in power. The thing is, micro-cruelties always grow. For one, they start calling her Maxine when they're angry at her to differentiate from the good Max, reducing her whole identity to two emotions. By season 3, Ginny and Abby deliberately excluded Max multiple times. Ginny, Abby, and Marcus hung out, taking pictures to make Max angry. Maxine's a bitch, Abby says, as if they aren't vocal to everyone except Max about how they feel. And Marcus tells him, she'll get over it, which we know she doesn't. Nora's deference to Abby and Ginny forces Max to either give a one-sided apology or be alone. Later, when Ginny and Nora worry about Abby's eating disorder, they leave Max out. Abby needs to be talked to gently, yet aren't in the least gentle about it. The encounter ends with Ginny and Nora word vomiting all their own problems. Abby admits Max is going to be so mad we trauma bonded without her. Right, it will so hurt her feelings. They admit this and change the topic with no intention to include Max. Think about that for a second. They explicitly acknowledge they're hurting her and yet choose to continue anyway. That isn't accidental, it's calculated. This pattern shows up even during Max's most vulnerable moments. After a strong performance in Moose where she duets about how no one really sees her, a breakdown, and calling out Sophie and Silver for playing with her emotions, Max should be happy. Yet Abby notices Max seems upset, she puts on a show of caring, only to immediately assume it's her being dramatic about them excluding her. Just one more way to center their own feelings while keeping Max invisible. Guys, I don't want any more drama, Ginny says when Nora asks if they should apologize. But apologies aren't exclusive to when you do something wrong. They show you care about the other party's feelings, which is how you avoid drama. Not to mention, I'd rather someone be shitty to my face and act like nothing happened and gaslight me into questioning if my feelings are my own fault or it's all in my head. We don't want you to feel left out, but you did leave her out. Abby accidentally letting it drop, the fairy makeup, egging her dad's house, reads like revenge for season 2. Teenagers, sure, but their reaction is selfish and calculated. And did they ever consider the reason they assume Max will be upset is because they are doing something hurtful? This wasn't born in season 3. Even in season 1, Abby and Nora toss Ginny under the bus for shoplifting, then show up with makeup like that fixes it. The pattern consists of sandwiching slights and compliments, then we're fine now. Classic intermittent reinforcement. Cruelty and love bombing are how abusive dynamics keep you orbiting. It's that love you, mean it, hate you, kidding manipulation. For Meng, they rely on Max, either to bring them together, as in season 1, or to bind them against a common target. When she asks for the same loyalty back, they punish her for rocking the boat. In these sorts of friendships, the closer you get, the more flaws irritate you. Micro-cruelties become a way to offload onto the one friend big enough to absorb it. Georgia says it's impossible to go through things unscathed. But can you control how you change? Are you in control? You are. You aren't in control of what happens, but self-awareness is how you stop making the same moves. We don't have to stay friends with people who keep us in these loops. And by season 3, I only really see changes in Max for the better. Season 1 and 2 Max, yikes, but her character growth is light years ahead of where she started. The way Meng plays it though, someone has to be kept less, so the rest feels enough. Today it's Max, Maxine, tomorrow it's whoever dares to disagree, and that brings us back to Mean Girls. Love you, mean it, hate you, kidding is a control system delivered like a bit. Keep one friend off balance with sweet then spite, convince her she's dramatic for noticing, and you never have to change. It's also how a group quietly chooses the role of the friend nobody likes, the designated problem. And here's where we need to talk about why it's always the same type of person who gets chosen for that role. We need to bring this back to Mean Girls for a second. When Janice snaps at Katie, that's the problem with you plastics. You think that everybody is in love with you when actually everybody hates you. What's brilliant about this moment is it applies to Ginny and Georgia through the all too common action of othering. Most unhealthy relationships need a designated evil person for others to bond over, because those problems are bitches, mean girls, or in Max's case, overdramatic. This is where the friend nobody likes appears. The scapegoat serving a psychological function as a repository for everyone else's messy emotions, allowing the group to maintain the illusion of stability. And why so many people connected to Max in season 3 is they recognize themselves in that role. It bears mentioning neurodivergence here, but it's more than that. As someone with ADHD, it's plain to me that Max is masking. So her needs show up loud. Direct questions, over-explaining, pushing for consistency among a group of people who are not like-minded. Their group punishes visible need. Hidden pain is deep. Spoken pain is dramatic. Girls who voice emotions are too much. Boys who brood are mysterious. That double standard does half the work for them. Now, there's a specific type of scapegoating that happens to people who naturally bring groups together. They become essential for group function, but expendable for individual relationships. Everyone likes them because of the effort they put in, but they're simultaneously kept at arm's length. They carry the emotional labor of maintaining the group cohesion while being denied the deeper friendships they create for everyone else. What makes this especially cruel is how Ginny inserts herself into relationships Max has maintained for years, with Abby and Nora all too willing to let it happen. Max built these relationships, nurtured them, kept them together, but the moment power shifts, everyone's ready to treat Max like she's the outsider in her own friend group. This dynamic plays out clearly in Season 3 finale. Max doesn't even want to go to the party. She'd rather avoid her friends entirely, but goes anyway because Marcus has slipped out to drink again, and she feels responsible for holding him together. Ginny only notices how bad his condition is much later, even though she somehow picked up on Abby's eating disorder and organized an intervention. For most of the season, they hold on to Max being dramatic because that's the role she's assigned, and Marcus took advantage of this to downplay the severity of his problem. When she finally confronts Ginny, all of that pressure, all of that unspoken weight she's been carrying comes spilling out. Max apologizes for not seeing Ginny's poem, admits that it hurt when Ginny didn't come to her performance of Moose. She tries explaining she understands because she knows what it's like to feel abandoned. Ginny's response is the coldest, most clipped, "Sorry," then twists the knife. Maybe we just grew apart a bit. And maybe that's okay. It's brutal. She's practically savoring watching Max drown. This moment reveals everything about Max's role in the group. She was never anyone's first choice. When people branched off into tighter subgroups, she was left orbiting alone, carrying immense responsibility while feeling completely isolated. So when Ginny casually dismisses their friendship, Max can't accept it. She doesn't want it to be okay. That cruelty lingers. Instead of reconciliation, Max gets dismissal. Instead of repair, she gets rejection. And the person who always held everything together is left to unravel on her own. The cycle really goes like this. They mistreat her, she has an outburst. They mistreat her more because her reaction proves she's dramatic, but they never ask why she exploded in the first place. That's the trap of scapegoating. The group convinces you the entire conflict is your fault. The truth is, being scapegoated is rarely about what you did. It's about what the group needs to project onto you. And sometimes you love people, maybe they even love you back, but they do not respect you. That's why boundaries matter. To stop being scapegoated, you have to recognize the dynamic, assert your truth without begging for validation, and understand they may never change. I hope anyone who's been told they're too much knows it's better to let others choke on you than dilute yourself to be palatable. Yes, self-reflection is important. Sometimes we are too much, but friends should like you. If they don't, they're not your friends. It's far easier to walk alone than walk with a knife in your back. That's what makes Max's growth stand out. At first, I found her annoying too, but rewatching, I realized how refreshing it is to see a teenager act like an actual teenager. By Season 3, Max is the one who's grown. The others stayed the same, only finding new ways to make her the problem. That's the thing about the friend nobody likes. They aren't born, they're made. Created by groups who need someone to absorb their mess so everyone else can feel reasonable by comparison. So remember, being called too much often means you're exactly enough for the right people. Because it isn't whether you're too much, it's whether you're with people who deserve all you have to give. If you made it through this deep dive into friendship dynamics and recognized yourself in Max's story, check out my other character analyses. And whether you're wondering if you're too much or just surrounded by the wrong people, ditto. That's why I'm Pickle Ditto, because whatever storytelling pickle you're in, I've probably been there too.